Attitude check. Bronco Pipe.
In this episode of Broncos on Blast, we will highlight Fayetteville State University assistant head football coach David Bowser, who spent the last 2 decades on the Broncos sideline, developing young men to be champions on the field and in life. Here's Coach Bowser and his background before he arrived at Bronco Country.
I was very fortunate to have been at NC State, North Carolina State University, under Dick Sheridan, who was the head coach at that time, and the defensive coordinators in that period were also Joe Pate and Buddy Green, who are 3 people that probably are the biggest influences in my decisions of wanting to be in coaching and aspiring to get to coach college. I just love the way that they ran programs, their organization, their ability to connect with young people made great impressions. The guys that I was in school with and was able to be teammates with are some outstanding individuals to have gotten to know. And I think a lot of the memories and things that you appreciate is that the relationships that we have with one another when you're talking almost 25, 30 years later. So that was a great experience. I had several years of high school coaching. My background was I started out fresh out of college at Garner High School, was secondary coach there. Of course, when you coach high school, you coach several sports. I also coached basketball and did a little bit of track as well. And then from there, was head basketball coach at Anson Senior High School. Then went to Westover High School as head football coach, and then did couple of years at Orange High School before I got a chance to coach college at Division III school, Hampton-Sydney, before getting on at Fayetteville State University in 2000. The number of years that I've been coaching at Fayetteville State is I'm beginning my 20th season as an assistant football coach at Fayetteville State University. Came here in January of 2000. When I first came here, I was a running back coach. Then eventually I got moved over to inside linebackers, then coached the secondary for a while. Was able to be defensive coordinator at one point, and then presently back coaching linebackers again. I was very blessed to, this past year was the 6th championship. We've won 3, but I think that when you look at where Fayetteville State is, it's underestimated in the fact of the last 20 years of how successful Fayetteville State University football has been in not only the CIAA, but also in Division II. Because you should look at how teams have been ranked nationally throughout different categories, how individuals have won awards individually, the number of All-Americans, and the fact that even since 2000, there's been several young men that have either gone to the NFL or played in the CFL or have had some type of experience in arena football that have come out in this era. And I think that's really a blessing and a testament to how the university has grown over the years. And I've been very fortunate to be a part of that. Well, I think that one of the biggest similarities that I've noticed with the program is that there's a lot of similarities between how Coach Hayes has built this program in the same way that Coach Phillips built the program when he first came here. They believe in toughness, they believe in accountability, and they believe in pushing their guys to the limit so that when you get in those big games, you eventually will rise to the occasion. And I think that when you look at those type of settings, as far as that toughness, the ability to push individuals to go harder, that's the biggest thing that I see as far as the similarities between the time that the first run for the championships and then the experience in the building that's going on right now, is that toughness. That's a very important quality to be a champion, is toughness. Oh, the most memorable game, that put an S on the end of that one because, but I'll say this, probably the most memorable team that has led to the most memorable games has been the opportunities back in 2002 when the game went to overtime at 7-7 against Winston-Salem State, and then all of a sudden it just exploded where everybody was scoring, and then it finally came down to a big stop on the goal line, and we finally got over the hump to beat them. And that year we went to the championship game in 02, and then you fast forward that thing 15 years later, and we do the same thing in Bowman Gray Stadium again. The circumstances at the end of the season, this time it was a late season game, and everybody was thinking that, hey, these guys have won this many championships. But the best thing about that one was that you had somebody leading the team who had been on that other side, so he kind of knew what it took to get over the hump to expose Winston and get some things done. And so we were blessed to have gotten that in 15. So if I ever look at most memorable game, it'd have to put an S on it, and those 2 games against Winston-Salem State. Well, I have 2, and they're both in similar stories as far as what they managed to do just by their character and their willingness to excel. And one of them is a young man by the name of Richard Medellin, who came to Fayetteville State looking for an opportunity and a chance. And Richard, every year you could see him progressing. He went from a redshirt freshman to 1 year he's leading the nation in kick returns, and then the next thing you know, he's getting an opportunity in the NFL. And I always thought of him as one of those young men that people just underestimated coming out of high school, because he played with a couple of guys that went to Division I schools. But the thing about it was, Richard was the one that managed to take the best of an opportunity, come into a Division II school, get his education, and excelled. And then another one is a young man named Michael Dante Johnson, who was a 3-time All-American here. Had the pleasure of recruiting Michael also, and just looked at a kid and watched him grow in the 4 years that he was here, and how he just evolved, and still we keep in touch, and I'm very proud of him because he's managed to take his opportunities in life and make the best of them. So when you look at memorable players, it doesn't always necessarily have to be what they do on the field, even though both those young men excelled on the field, but the way that they've also excelled in life has been an also awesome thing to explore and see as an individual in this profession. Oh, well, this bunch right here is collectively an exciting group, but I will say that probably the one that piques my curiosity the most to see how they're going to develop and grow this year would be Stevie Green, just because of his humble background, but his work ethic is outstanding. And for him to be the kind of player that he's been since he's been at Fayetteville State, you would assume that he would just lose his mind, but he stays humble. And he's really developed into a young man that really wants to get over the hump and see Fayetteville State be successful again. And he's got some guys here who are very similar in those characteristics, and I think that's what's going to make this team special. Is there's a bunch of humble guys who want to be successful and are willing to pay the price for each other and with each other. I'll tell you, I shared an office for when we used to be over in the old Lily Gym for a couple of years with Coach Connell Maynor. And the one thing about Coach Maynor that I always remember is he had a very positive attitude and was very confident, and he'd always tease us about him being probably one of the greatest athletes ever, and how he had bowled perfect games, and his golf skills and his basketball skills. I remember him playing intramurals while we were here coaching, and we'd stay over sometimes and watch them play. And I think that just watching a colleague, and then what people also don't remember is the first several years, Coach Maynor was still playing arena football. So, I mean, it was just to see somebody like that who at his age, as he was maturing in this profession, he still kept it youthful and had a lot of fun. I thought that was pretty cool. So he's probably one of the most memorable coaches that I've worked with. One thing I always try to get the guys to understand as far as words that I want them to live by and follow is that it's very important that you keep a positive attitude and you give great effort, because what you got to understand is there are going to be good days, there's going to be tough days. You're going to experience some things that can be disappointing. You can lose people along the way. You might have circumstances that hurt you from the inside out. But if you keep a positive attitude and you give great effort, then you can see your way through things. But I just want these guys to understand, and all people understand that yeah, life doesn't seem fair, but the one thing about it, you get one. You get one. So if you spend the majority of that life sulking or not giving your very best, then when it's all said and done, you've missed the opportunity. So I always just say, in words to live by, have a great attitude and just give great effort.
Come on! Come on! Let's go! Chop your feet! Chop your feet! Chop your feet! Chop your feet! Last man! Last man! Last man! Last man! Get in here! Move! Hustle off! There you go! Hustle off! Good job! Hustle off! Hustle off!